Hello, welcome to Topper Machine. I'm Josh Topper, and today's job is to turn this chunk of steel into a new tool holder for the Mori vertical slaughter. So this is a square bar of 1045 steel, 6-inch square by 12 inches long. And so what we're building is a new tool holder for the Mori vertical slaughter. Now here is the tool holder that I took out of the RAM to get my measurements of what we need here. This gear on here just sits there. It was never screwed on, so I think I'll just swap it back and forth as needed, but eventually I'll have to make another gear for the other holder and then screw them on. But what the problem has been is this holder is actually too tall for the long stroke parts that I got to cut. This is a 12-inch stroke machine and I can't even get 10.5. So I need to make a shorter holder, which will compensate for that difference and allow me to cut those 10.5-inch long internal keyways that I got the job for. Now I had every intention of doing this, a bunch of this squaring up of this block on the horizontal boring mill with the big face mill that I set up in a video a couple weeks ago, but the inserts that I had on hand, the angle isn't steep enough, so they won't quite work. So I'm gonna have to get different inserts, and I had done every other tooth just because I had a broken seat in one of them, so I just did every other. You don't need to put them all in, but instead, let's get it over in the lathe and let's start turning the shaft part of it, and then we'll finish this thing off in the Bridgeport. So we got it up in the chuck there, just sitting there loosely right now with my pusher plate on the back here. This is just a round plate with a center drill mark to help hold things up. And then I'll start indicating in the chuck the part and get everything trued up. And then I'll true it up square-wise and face it off and center drill it, and then we can start machining. Okay, she's all indicated in. Let's give her a spin and see what it looks like. That looks nice. Now, I'm not going to run this super fast. We're just going to face it off till it's cleaned up enough and then center drill it, and then we'll start turning it down the rest of the way. All right, here's hoping for the best. Just going to bring it in, touch it off, nice and gentle. And we're just going to take about 25 a pass. So obviously it's pretty crooked. That's all that I got. The cut is not square. That's for sure. This cut is definitely not square. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna center drill it, and we'll just run in as close to the center drill mark as I can until we get it trued up, and then we'll take it back out and turn it where the center drill was. Okay, now that I got a little support on it, I'm going to run a little faster. I got 250 RPM. I'm going to take about 50 thou on this pass and a little bit faster feed rate just because I feel confident I got enough support now. Well, that mostly cleaned up. I think I'm gonna take another 30 thou. That'll get us inside of where we're cutting it down to. Well, that cleaned up beautifully. I think we'll just live with that, and I won't even bother facing that because I'm actually going to drill and tap there, so we should be okay. So here is the tool holder in the Mori, and so what we got is the square block, and then we've got this step and this step. And I already measured these out and made a rough sketch here, whether you can see it or not. So this step is 4.063 long, this one's 1 inch. And then 2.5 on the small one, 3.5 on the big one. And then once we get these steps cut in, then I'll come in and do this radius and make it all look pretty. Probably take a 1/4 inch aside and run it nice and gentle and see what happens. Boy, that sounds pretty rough, but it's actually cutting pretty good. Once we get through the interrupted cut, it won't be so bad. I'm not pushing it too hard, about 10 thou revolution. Now, interrupted cuts like this are a perfect time to feel out your machine for any excessive vibration. Feel it all the slideways, everything, anywhere you can think of. And this machine's pretty stoned because it's brand new, but within a year. But definitely feel it out. Feel for any discrepancies in the way it cuts or runs. Yeah, that looks pretty consistent. I may slow her down just a little more because that's so rough. That might smooth things out for me. So I think I'll drop it down to 90 RPM and see how she does. This is 90 RPM, taking another 1/4 inch aside at 10 thou feed rate. Yeah, I think we're gonna back it off and take an 1/8 inch. That just feels a little bit excessive yet. Well, this is going to take a while, so I'm just going to keep whittling away at it. Well, there it is, 100% cleanup. Now we can get to the real turning, and I pulled the insert, and I don't know how well you can see this corner, but this is why I love these Sandvik inserts. They hold up extremely well, but I'm going to change it out now. I mean, even that, I mean, that's still a really good finish. All right, so my camera battery had died here, and we're cutting her down to size, get her down to the close to the first step of 3.5 inches. I'm taking 1/4 inch aside, so 250 depth of cut, 1/2 inch total, and feeding about 10 thou a rev. It's cutting real nice at that. Just a quick measurement to see where we're at with the caliper, because calipers are not precision measuring tools. So I've got another 300 to go. I'm going to take 200 and then we'll do the second step. I'm just going to face this off to my finished length here quick, just to make sure we're good, and then I can touch it all up once we're all done. All right, we're all roughed down to size. I'm gonna let this cool for a little bit, and then we'll finish these steps off to what they need to be, and then drill and tap the end here, and then finish off the face of this. Okay, we're all cooled off. I sped her up to 355 RPM, and we're just gonna take the first pass here and then stop it and measure. 64 to go. Perfect. $40 to go. All right, I've slowed it down again, and we're using the round insert. We're gonna just chamfer this, or radius it like it was on the other one with a little step. Now, we won't go too deep, but we'll just be careful about it. And I'm gonna feed from the inside out. I think that looks pretty nice. Now we'll get set up and drill and tap it. All right, now that we got it this far, let's take it out, put it in the bandsaw, and cut it off to what we actually need. I got a little extra material for this job just in case I needed something for a future add-on to the machine for these jobs that I'm doing. So I brought it over here to the old Monarch to face off the end just because I don't want to change out my forejaw, because the next job I got coming in the shop I need the forejaw for. So I kind of plan ahead not to be handling stuff more than I need to. So we're going to just finish this off in the Monarch and then we'll move over to the boring mill. One last thing that might help me in the long run, I'm just going to put a center drill mark in here. You never know when it might come in handy for indicating or something like that. Okay, so I brought it over here to the Lucas horizontal boring mill, and I've got my setup here. I've got my angle plate that's been on the table since the last job, square, true to the table, perpendicular to the spindle, or in line with the spindle. And then I added this stop, indicated it in. I got two 1, 2, 3 blocks back here. Now the first cut, I'm gonna butt it up tight to the 1, 2, 3 blocks, and that will get me my first edge. And then we'll mill it, turn it, put it up tight to the angle plate here, and then mill the second edge, and then from there on we just mill based off of the angle plate. So the first edge is off the back, getting it square to itself, and then turn it and then square it off of the angle plate. So let's get milling. In that first pass, I'm going to take 25 thousandths. I noticed it was trying to cut on the back cut, so I'm just going to let it do it, and then we'll do the next cut. Well, I'd say that looks really nice. I was feeding it fairly slow just to get a nice surface finish, and I am very pleased with that. So we'll get the bottom edge deburred and rotate it around. So now we got our second, this is our first side, our second side's up against the angle plate. I got my stop here and I'm up against, tight against the angle plate. Now I should be able to take an additional 25 to compensate for the 25 I took off this side. that's turning into a thing of beauty. I think what I'll do though, after I drill the mount holes, is I'll chuck it up in the lathe again and just round these corners a little bit, because you can see it didn't clean up. When I started with this block, it was supposedly, you know, it's a square block. It was nowhere near square. As you could see in some of them, it was taking a little more in places than others, but boy, that came out beautiful. All right, well, I got all my indicating done. I got her all lined up, and I'm gonna start drilling for my bolts, or my threaded holes, and we'll drill it in here, and then we'll take it over to the AV and tap them, 5/811. So I just started on the last hole here, and I wanted to bring this up. I asked in a community tabs post about sponsorships and working with different vendors. And this is a new product that was sent to me. It's called 𝐸𝐻𝐫𝐿𝐵E. It is a supposedly totally safe, water-based, non-hazardous, smokeless. It's supposed to work on just about everything. I'm willing to give it a try, and we'll see how it is. They sent me the MSDS, and the stuff looks incredible that way. So let's check its performance. We'll drill this hole using the 𝐸𝐻𝐫𝐿𝐵E, and then we'll tap it using the 𝐸𝐻𝐫𝐿𝐵E and see how it works out. I guess we'll just put it on there and see what happens. Definitely feels like it's got some slime to it, which is good. Well, I'm really impressed with how that's performed. I didn't see any smoke. Definitely going to do more playing with this and more trying and see what I really think in the long run. So I set it up on the AV, but I wasn't happy with the way it was looking. In fact, this is going to take a lot of torque to tap these 5/8 holes. So I set it up over here in the Carlton. And well, I already tapped the first hole just to see how that 𝐸𝐻𝐿𝐵E worked out, and actually it seemed to cut pretty good. So we'll do the rest of the holes and see how it looks. Well, I'm having problems with my drill chuck spinning on my Jacob's taper, so I'm going to switch out to a different holder altogether. So I switched out to a tapered tap driver. Just goes in a Morse taper. It's a split thing. You pound it in and it locks it right in nice and tight. So let's see how that cuts. Much better. Well, that cut really well after I switched my holder, but I'll do a lot more testing on this stuff, this 𝐸𝐻𝐿𝐵E. We'll see if see how it works out long term here in the shop. So definitely something I would buy just to try it out anyway. And one more thing I wanted to do here was just round these corners a little bit. So I got it over here back in the Monarch, and I'm just going to take about 150 thousandths and we'll just clean up them corners. Beautiful. That looks like $1,000,000. And the last little bit of this puzzle is the threaded rod. We just sawed it off, and I'll put a light little chamfer on it to knock the burr off. All right, let's put the threaded rod in. And the reason I selected a threaded rod versus turning it down and threading it is replaceability. If anything ever happened that I needed to replace this threaded rod, I can. All right, now we throw the gear on there. I'm not going to bolt it on this time. I'm going to make another one eventually, but it should be a nice snug fit. There, it dropped. And let's see how it fits up in there. Well, this was a big job and I'm glad it's done. This should give me a lot of years of service life, I mean, throughout my career. And it's not done yet. There is actually more to this, and there'll be another video where I build the rest of this tool holder, but getting done with this part was kind of key right now, is get that done, get it out of the way so that I can focus on the smaller stuff. And stick around, there's some cool stuff coming as far as more videos. We got more machining videos. Got some pretty neat upgrades to the sawmill that we're doing yet that are machining related videos, so stick around for that. And until next time, get out in your shop and get it done right the first time.